bum, bum.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday Checkdown. I'm Joe Carlton, and I'm here with Rick Brusuelas. Tonight, we have a very special guest who is coming in pretty damn clutch on short notice because our original guest, Chuck Bass, was not able to make it. He's driving down to Atlanta to cheer on his team at the Sweet 16. So can't say we blame him. I would definitely do the same thing. And we will be scheduling him at a later date, I think the end of May. If not, it'll be the beginning of June. But with that being said, let's introduce a very special fill-in guest. Welcome TSA's own Gina Noble.
Hey,
What's up,
everyone. Thank you for having me. Short notice and all.
Thank you for coming on. It is greatly appreciated. I didn't have to go digging. You were like, yeah, sure, right away. So
Made you sweat it out a little bit.
Even for like 10 minutes, yeah. No, really, thank you. We wanted to have you on at some point anyway, so this is good.
Looking forward to it.
So I want to talk about our first interaction on Twitter.
Oh boy. I'm about to get in trouble.
No. You made a good impression on me. I was actually having a bad day that day, and I probably shouldn't have been on social media chiming in on arguments. But Tom Brady's divorce was the topic at hand, so I, basically chimed in and was like, I think if he retired, maybe things would have been differently. And Gina popped right in there and put me in my place for speculating. And I am very thankful for that, because after the fact, it the whole entire argument. Like, I got into it with this guy for a few minutes. Like, it was like going back and forth like way longer than it should have. So after it resonated with me when I was off of social media, it dawned on me that Gina has a good point, and I went back on and I gave her a follow. And she followed me she followed back. So that was pretty cool. And I feel like my awareness, so I was real new. I didn't join social media until 2022. So I was still only like a few months in. So I was still making stupid rookie mistakes like that. So that helped. Like, you really it helped me by awareness with that and avoiding situations that I shouldn't be getting into. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm a perspective person too. So I always like to look at all the angles, because I think, especially in society, we're so quick to make snap judgments on things that we think we know, but really we don't have any knowledge of beyond hearsay and rumors. But I just like to usually give perspective, but I try to do it in a kind way. I try not to be a jerk about anything. And so I'm glad that, I was able to calmly talk through some perspective, and we became friends out of it.
Yeah, that was awesome. I appreciate
Tom's still
it. Yeah, well, that's what it is. I think that I just couldn't. I think you weren't saying it in words, but I think you were implying it might not be Tom's fault. And I think you nailed it. You're totally right about that. So,
yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So, well, why don't you tell us about yourself, your background, where you live, what you do for work, your family, your new family member?
I do have a new family member. Yes. So I live in Mooresville, North Carolina, originally from Western Massachusetts. So Mr. Boston up there. If you notice the dialect of our language, we talk very differently.
Yes.
But grew up in Massachusetts, lived there, moved to North Carolina when I was 21. So I'm down here now, and I have my husband Craig, which what do they call him, Miss Regina Noble in the chat?
Miss Regina Noble, yeah.
He's huge supporter, but usually like silent in the background. Like, no, you can take the limelight. I want no part of that. And then I have two beautiful daughters, Bella and Bristol. Bella, as you know, some of you know, Bella has just blessed us with a granddaughter. Totally unaware, crazy situation. She was down in Fort Myers, Florida on a softball scholarship. We thought she had norovirus, went to the ER only to find out that she was 8 centimeters dilated and about to give birth to a baby. And yeah, so Gracelyn was born. So I'm actually a new grandma. Here, I'll show you.
Yeah, you can bring her on.
Show her. So this is our little
Nice.
miracle. This is our little miracle. I mean, it's crazy that she was in the womb for 9 months and no one knew, but she came out completely healthy and she is absolutely loved. So that's our latest and greatest story. Whoops. And this little outfit is from Angie Hatfield. Let's give a little shout out to Angie. So she sent that for Super Bowl. And so she got to wear that for Super Bowl because she said that she needed to be dressed appropriately and she needed to start out right in the industry. So thank you, Angie, for that.
Awesome. So being originally from Massachusetts, can you give me a couple of things? Is there anything that you miss about being up here?
So I miss Friendlies. I miss Friendlies with all of my heart and soul. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people in Massachusetts miss Friendlies too, because there's not many left.
As soon as you said that,
Turkey Club Super Melt, fries, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup Sundae with mint chocolate chip ice cream. Don't knock it till you try it. That's my go-to. I was just up there last weekend and we had a Friendlies nearby and I was like, we're doing Friendlies. So that is definite. And then I miss the falls, like the way that Massachusetts celebrates the fall is unlike anything else on this planet. And just like the colonial like feel up there. So I'm from Western Mass, which is like a foreign like land. I'm sure to you, you've probably never even been to Western Mass, even though it's like all of maybe a 45-minute drive from you.
No, it's longer than that to get to. Were you west of Worcester, right?
Yeah. So I was like right next to Amherst.
That's like that's over an hour.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
An hour. Yeah. You can drive for 8 hours in the state I live in and still be in the same state. So an hour is literally nothing.
Yeah, no, I've only driven through there on the way to New York in my life.
You can drive for days across Texas. So.
Yeah, Texas. Yeah, you can drive for 3 days in Texas and not leave it. I've done it.
That's insane.
I literally, the one time I drove through Texas, I was like, I'm never getting out of this state. I think it was like a Stephen King movie where I actually got locked into a state and I was like, there's no way out. It's too big. So yeah, and my family. So I still have 2 brothers up there and a bunch of friends and stuff. But I would not. You couldn't pay me to move back. No offense, but the weather down here.
No offense at all. I agree. As soon as we have the chance, I think might be see you later, Massachusetts. Myself. So, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Look at your brother. Is this your brother or your sister, Blakely? Sister? No, wife. Is that your wife?
That's my wife. Yeah.
Yeah, she said her sister-in-law is from Western Mass. You've been there. You're so getting thrown under the bus.
She was with Templeton. That's where she is from. That's right. We did a 4th of July. We did a 4th of July out there. There's a nice little lake, and it's kind of like it's way better than the city and dealing with like city people and you know what I mean. That's like more of a smaller community, so it's like. Yeah, and everybody pitches in for the fireworks, and then it's like a real nice show. Yeah. It was pretty good. Yeah, nice little area, but so okay. Well, legend has it that not only is your daughter an amazing softball player, but you were quite the player yourself. Can you?
So I was very athletic growing up. I don't know that I would compare what softball was back in the day in Belchertown, Massachusetts, to what my daughter was doing. I mean, by the time she was in like third grade, I think she was outplaying me. But I was a very good athlete. So I was actually softball, volleyball, and I swam. So I come from a family of swimmers, and we actually would swim year round. Swimming's big in Massachusetts, so that was a big thing. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I was pretty good at it. I was just willing. I love the competition. That's why I love fantasy football. I'm a competitor.
Nice. Me too. That's it. Like anything that I did when it comes to a competition, like
Yeah,
oh yeah,
I'll make it a competition.
yeah, pretty
You
much.
want to make cookies? I bet I can bake them better.
Rick, you got any questions to add before we move on to talk about our fantasy football history before we move on to that?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and move into where she's, some of the things she's done in fantasy football. I've got some questions for her related to Scott Fishbowl.
Nice.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Since
got some good and I've got some bad.
We've been in the chat, the draft chat, or the 103 and 104.
Oh yeah.
The last couple of years.
See, I've never joined any of those. Like, what do you guys just talk about? Like, who you considering?
Oh, it's actually this year was interesting because it turned into the Kyle Pitts chat.
Yeah.
We had like I am to Debbie Gibson. We had like the
Kyle Pitts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually influenced, including myself, to draft him way earlier than he should. So
yeah. I fought the urge. I almost did it because he was available, but I fought the urge, and I'm glad I did. Although I did have him in some other leagues that kind of killed me. But
yeah,
the chats are good from when you're all drafting from the same draft position. It is a good way to sort of either, if people have already gotten to that spot and you haven't, sort of know what's going to be available. Or if you're at that spot and you're sort of like, I could go this way or I could go this way, get like a consensus maybe of like what people did, just to get some opinions and whys. And so then when you're making that choice, if you're really leaning, two ways, you're like, all right, I got to figure this out and work this out. So it does give you a good perspective on that draft slot specifically.
And that comes up both pre-draft, because a lot of people are doing mock drafts leading into the draft. And then you're right, you're also able to leverage people who've already drafted, so you can get, average, draft position for players that you're interested in. And there's a good amount of sharing of information. Also a lot of support for each other. I mean, again, you kind of become a community. And so you're hoping for the other people, as in our case, the 103 this last year, you're really rooting on the 103s to hopefully win. Yeah. If you really get into it, as the season progresses, they'll start publishing stats for, here's the 103 is, getting into the playoff more often than the 107 or 108s. And so it's pretty interesting, useful information. Since I've had her in 2 straight drafts, so
because we were 104 last year, right?
2 years ago, and then 103. So and maybe we were following Zach. I don't know why we made that change.
Yeah.
So, but it's good. And part of the fun a big part of the fun of Scott Fishbowl is meeting people, interacting with people. It's such a community. The fantasy football world is such a community that I got a chance to meet Gina. And by the way, and I was going to wait till we were talking about how you did in the fantasy football, but I'll share that 2 years ago, you did really well. I mean, I think
She did. I remember.
I had an epic season. It'll never happen again, but it was fun while I was just riding the wave. Every week I was like, oh, this is going to be the week that I just, I fall out, and then it would get better and it would get better. And I'm like, what is happening? And I did really well. And then I got bit because Dak Prescott was one of my quarterbacks. And I also had Tony Pollard, who is still with the Cowboys. And I had Aaron Jones. And that was the year he missed a lot of football for I think it was a hamstring injury. But that last week of like right before the playoffs or something, it was in Scott Fish playoffs. The Cowboys just bombed. And it was the cause of a lot of teams losing out in playoffs because I don't think Dak put up 3 points and I don't think Tony Pollard had anything.
I think Dak was already out.
Oh my God.
I think he was injured. I think it was maybe Cooper Rush was playing quarterback at that point.
I think he had just come back.
Oh,
I want to say he just came back or something because he had an amazing season and he was one of the reasons I think I got so far, and then he got injured. But I just remember it was like, I did so good. And I was because the points really help you. And so because I had scored so many points, it helped me in those bad weeks. But then by that point, it was half of your average points plus the points from that week. And it just wasn't enough. Just wasn't enough. So I was like, you know what? It was fun while it lasted. I got to see my name up on that. I think I made it. At one point, I was like first for the week or something. And I was just crazy to see my name amongst how many thousands of people. There's over like 4,000 people.
Yeah.
And
nice feeling, right?
I'd be happy to be at the 50% mark, let alone be in the top week after week. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I always say that as long as I make the playoffs, you can't win. Everyone's, again, the approach of Scott Fishbowl is that you're going to be going up against 4,000 people, so you have to take risks. You can't be chalk. I'm actually I'm more conservative. I'm risk averse. So, get me into the playoffs, and then from there, it's a new season, and I'll worry about it then. And so, really, the last 4 years I've gotten into the playoffs, but I can't get over that, that last, hurdle of the top 500, which really gets you into the playoffs. And so I'm always that last.
Let me ask you this, Rick. When you draft for Scott Fish, do you pay attention to the bye weeks for the playoffs? You don't draft. See, I actually try to devise a little bit of a scheme with that because the year before I was dropping 248, like 253, and then I had a bye week issue, and that's the week I got eliminated. And I was like,
so I do focus on quarterbacks early. I got lucky because I got Hurts as my first quarterback, and I had to wait because I forgot the reason why, but I had to wait. And I got Baker Mayfield as my second quarterback, and I got Sam Darnold as my third quarterback. So I really lucked into the because Baker Mayfield outscored Hurts.
Yeah,
so,
he did.
Baker Mayfield was number 2, wasn't he, last year?
For a little
while.
So
for a little while.
I was hoping to get Baker a little later. So he was my I waited, and then I wanted to grab Baker, which would have worked out perfect. Because are you talking about this last season?
Yeah.
So as good as my season was last year, this last season was horrific.
You had bad luck.
Terrible. Well, I took CMC first, so boom, right there. That is such a devastating loss for any team for your 101 to be injured for an entire season. And then I had Puka. He was injured. I had every injured player known to man. At one point, I don't even think I could fill my roster out. I had so many injuries, and there wasn't anybody worth really picking up. I mean, a few, but it was bad. But I wanted Baker, and I don't even remember who I had for quarterbacks. It was ugly. The other one I kicked myself for is I ended up going with Puka. And I think Daniels was there and I should have gone with him. But I didn't know. I was just like, I don't know, I'm going to go with Puka, because Puka the previous year was he was my last round pick. I drafted him and he was huge. I also drafted Laporta like way late. And then, but I took Kelsey first. That was the year I was successful, was Kelsey was still scoring a bunch of points.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should have put that up first.
The way Scott changes the rules around, you got all these, people that were early drafting, at least in the live draft I was at, they were really going hard after the kick returners. So, Shaheed and Mims, and I mean, they were just, they had them all listed out. And I lucked into, I think, 3 or 4 games into the season, I lucked into Turpin. And all of a sudden, I was getting the benefit of, like the number 2 wide receiver.
Somebody didn't draft him? Like, I drafted him last year.
If they did, they must have dropped him, because
I don't know. I think I might have picked. I can't remember if I had him.
You drafted him. You drafted him as well.
I think I did.
When I saw your thing, when I saw
him, I had him in several leagues, and he was a little secret weapon. If you were getting points on kick return yardage, he was killing it every week.
He was. It was the number 2 wide receiver. Without,
he was a plug-in.
2 or 3 plays a game, but
he outscored CeeDee Lamb. I had them both, and he always had more points than CeeDee Lamb.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I'm sorry, I got us off track by diving.
Yeah, that's okay, Rick. I won't beat you. I won't beat you up for it this time.
Well, no, you can go ahead and start getting your, because I saw a great question from Mel about what fantasy football. So,
Well, that's what I usually ask these questions, Rick.
Well, go ahead, shoot, fire.
All right.
You actually asked me to ask a question, so that's
I know, but you see what happens? No, it's okay. It's okay. No, that was good.
This is the Off the Rails podcast.
I wanted the 3-way conversation, so I'm good with it. So let's go on to the fan. How long you been playing? When did you stop playing?
It's been a while now. I'd probably say 8 to 10 years. It doesn't seem like that long, but the last several years have kind of flown by. So I would say I'm probably pushing 10 years.
Awesome. So how did you get into it? Like, what happened? How did you end up playing your first league?
Yeah. So my husband has played fantasy football for a long time, probably 20 years plus. And I hated it. I hated it because he was constantly yelling at the television screen. And I can distinctly remember him yelling, "Throw it to Shockey," which was quite a few seasons ago.
Awesome title.
And I literally wanted to kill him. I'm like, I swear to God, if I hear Shockey one more time, I'm going to shock you. So it actually is a joke, because in our wedding vows, when we got married, he actually put it in there like, "Thank you for putting up with my fantasy football."
Nice. So, I love that.
I know. So now the question is, well, how did you end up getting into fantasy? So several years ago, a friend of mine, a girlfriend of mine, was like, "Hey, we need a couple. We have this home league and we had 2 people drop out. You and Craig should join." And I was like, "That is the worst idea I've ever heard out of your mouth." And she's like, "No, it's fun. And we need more women in the league." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't watch football." So I didn't even watch football. I'm like, I literally hate fantasy football. She's like, "You'll be fine." Well, as I mentioned, I'm a competitor and I don't like to lose. So typically I don't throw myself into something that I feel like I don't have a fighting chance. My husband's like, "This is a great idea. You should totally do this." So I, against my better judgment, I was like, fine, because I felt all this peer pressure coming at me. So, what did I do? I said, yes. Here, let's all jump off the bridge together. So I did. And I was like, okay, but I don't want to lose. Like, I don't want to be lame in this league. I want to actually try. So I immediately started trying to figure out the best way to like, how do I research this? Where do I learn stuff fast? And so I'm Google searching. I'm finding everything I can. Reading. So we were playing on ESPN. And I'm reading all of the bios and every single news thing that came up. And I'm going in and I'm looking at like matchups and everything. Well, this girl right here won her first ever league. And I was like, okay, this isn't that hard. You guys, come on. I don't even know football. It was actually the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, for the record, but don't tell them that. I've never had more anxiety over anything in my life. Like fantasy football gives me sheer anxiety. So from that point on, I was hooked because I was like, oh, this is great. So then I joined the next year. My neighborhood actually had a league and I jumped into that. I actually won that league. And then from there, so I think you're probably going to ask me how many leagues I play in. And I play, I have 15, I would say 15. I just started to downsize. It had gotten crazy during COVID. The thing to do was draft. And we got a little draft happy because it was like fun. And then when I realized I had to manage like 60 teams, I was like, this isn't so much fun.
60? Oh my God. I never did
Oh, it
that
was crazy. At one point I was like, this is literally insane. But a lot of them were free leagues. I met a great group of guys that Nick James, who I did a podcast with for a while. He is my like Yoda of fantasy football. Like he's taught me everything I know.
Your sensei?
Yes, yeah, totally. I'm like the young Padawan of the Jedi. So he got me into like a bunch of free leagues. And so I did that. And then slowly I have been scaling back because I want to put more quality into not spreading myself so thin, but really being able to focus more. So I'm trying to keep it under 20. 10 would be ideal, but
10 is the sweet spot, I think.
Yeah.
I've done 15, I've done 18.
Yeah.
18 is the highest I've ever done.
It's okay if you have a bunch of leagues with like the same guidelines, then it's easy to manage. But what gets difficult is when you get in leagues and it's like, okay, waivers run this way in this league, but waivers run this way in this league. And then you have open waivers and closed waivers. And, that's where it starts getting complicated because I can't keep I got too much on my mind to keep all that straight. So if everything's the same, it's easy. But when it's different, that's not easy.
Awesome. So you touched on the podcast, and we'll skip that question. Are you involved with the Women of Fantasy Football? I don't even know this. So
not directly.
That's why I'm asking.
I follow them, and Wendy, who's gotten pretty involved. Like I love Wendy. She's one of my absolute favorite people in the industry, but I'm not directly, but I follow them and everything. But I'm not directly involved. I don't get to go to like recruiting camp or anything like Wendy's done.
Have you been? So we're at where the Scottfish questions are at, so we can jump back into that. Have you been to any live events? Have you done any?
Not with Scottfish. So last year they did one in Charlotte, and I'm really crossing my fingers they do it again. It was my daughter's last travel. In Atlanta, she had a travel tournament, and I was like, I can't miss that. So we decided not to do it, but I'm hoping they're in Charlotte again this year. And then my husband and I would definitely. Oh, I did get to go to the Colorado. Craig's here reminding me. So we actually played softball. Bella had a tournament out in Colorado, and it was the same. I met Roxanne, and it was the same weekend Scottfish Live was drafting in Colorado in Denver. And so we went and had dinner with Roxanne, and she was like, hey, you should come to the event because she was drafting live. And I was like, oh my God, I'm totally going to do that. And Scott was there. So that was the first time I actually met Scott. And then, so I just hung out. I didn't draft or anything, but I got to meet
still fun.
People.
Still very fun.
Yeah, I would
100% go and hang out at one if I wasn't drafting.
Yeah.
Without question. Yeah. All right. Rick, any more Scott Fishbowl questions? Is there something that you wanted to add from earlier? No?
No,
all right. All right, so move on. Will you be attending the expo this year? I already know the answer to that, but you can tell the audience.
Yeah, I will. So I don't know if this was a question that would be coming up or not, but were you going to ask me about Queen's Classic at all?
What draft are you doing? Any drafts do you participate in?
So last year I was lucky enough to be, there's Angie. I was showing off the baby in your outfit. Sorry. So last year, I was lucky enough to be picked to be in the Queen's Classic, which is a big deal at the Expo. And so it's a 14 team league, and it's against, the smartest women of fantasy football. I was quite intimidated by the group I was up against. And speaking of anxiety, and I'm telling you, my poor husband and my daughter were ready to commit me. So I had a fantastic team. I don't want to brag, but I did dominate a lot of the season. So Linda actually was in the lead, but my points, I was scoring tremendous points every week. And I had a rough first couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden my team, so I had Joe Burrow and I had the Burrow Chase stack, and it was ridiculous. And so Burrow always starts off where you're like, what is going on? And then when he hits his stride, it's just like magic. And so when those two finally clicked, my team was just redonkulous. And I ended up taking over the lead. So I went into the playoffs, the top spot, and made it to the playoffs. It was me and Linda. And, Linda's the reigning champ. She won last year. So I made Craig actually shut off the game. I think it was the Lions versus Kansas City? I don't remember. I think it was the Lions. I think they were playing Kansas City. Would that make sense? I don't know. And I was literally rocking like a lunatic. I mean, I was a mess. And at one point, I shouldn't admit this, but I was like crying because I was so nervous. I'm like, I just want this win so bad. And I won. I did win. It came down to, I had a healthy lead going into that game, but it was dwindling fast. So I have to go to the Expo because I have to bring that. I get like a WWE belt, and I have to defend my championship.
100%.
So I get an automatic draft spot in this year's. So I had so much fun at the Expo that there was no way I couldn't go back this next year. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Looking
so
forward
I'll
to
be
it.
sporting. I'll be the one with the big WWE belt.
This will be my first time. My wife's coming with us, with me as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
So looking forward to that.
I have to tell you too, that was so like I'm in a lot of leagues and I've been fortunate enough to win. Like I have a pretty good, winning record. I've won lots of different types of leagues. And that has to be probably one of the coolest and most anxious win I've ever had. To be up against these amazing women who live and die by fantasy football, and all of them are hyper competitive, and to win that, I was like, this is probably my claim to fame. If I won the Scott Fish Bowl, that would be up there. But this is pretty much.
So you're telling me my statement holds that you're the best woman fantasy football player in the world? I think I said that at one point.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
All you do is win. All you do is win.
I do a lot of losing too.
Those are some big wins, though.
There are some big wins.
So speaking of big wins, your favorite team is the Lions. Are we going to see a big win in 2025?
I do love the Lions, and that love came from my love of Amon-Ra. And I love Sam Laporta too. I fear that their weakness, and I've been incredibly hard on Jared Goff, and I've gone back and forth, and I've seen moments of brilliance, but then I've seen moments where I'm like, you're just not going to get it done with a quarterback like that. So I truly feel like all of the parts and pieces are there for the Lions, and they truly should win a Super Bowl, but I just don't know that Jared, this is terrible. I'm sorry, Jared, if you're ever listening to this podcast, which you're probably not, but I don't know that he can get it done. I'm going to be hard on Jared.
I like the take. I like it because I've seen what some crappy Patriots defenses did to him just because Belichick knew what to do to him to confuse him. Like we didn't even have to have a talented team. You just had to play a certain way against them.
You can't get in there and throw interceptions the way he does and win a Super Bowl or win playoff games. You just can't do it. You might be able to get through the season with a good record here and there, but when push comes to shove, you're playing against the best teams in the league. You can't make those mistakes.
Yeah, one of the other challenges he has is he's really good inside, especially inside Detroit. But once he's outside, that's when he gets in trouble. I don't know if it's because of arm strength or what, but he does seem to have problems outside, especially cold weather. So,
yeah, I do love their coach. I think he's great. I think he's made a miraculous comeback of that team. I mean, that team used to be up there with the Cleveland Browns where it was like, oh God. But he is really, the morale of that team is so good. All of the parts are there. So there's only, I feel like there's one place you can look at this point and it's like, I don't know. I could be wrong. I hope he proves me wrong because that's how I am. I don't want to see any team fail. I don't have, like, the Lions are my favorite team because they happen to have one of my favorite players, but I don't dislike any teams. And I really am more like I love players, but I want them all to do good. I want them all to be, I want them all. I know. I'm like, and I'm not an everyone gets a trophy kind of girl. There has to be one winner, but I like the underdogs and I like to see the underdogs do well.
All right. Well, so there is a couple of free agent moves that happened this week. I just want to talk about briefly. Russell Wilson signs with the Giants. You and I had a little talk about this last night. You could tell the audience. What do you think? Is this good, bad? Does it affect neighbors?
I mean, I'm not crazy about Russell Wilson. He has his moments. I can remember fantasy football Russell where for the first half of the season, you think you made the most brilliant move ever. And he's like top dog. And then all of a sudden he falls off completely. But I think he's fine. I think he's fine. Like, he's not great. Do I think he's going to take him to a Super Bowl? No. But what did they have, So I think he's an improvement on what they had. I don't think it's great, but I'm not worried about Neighbors at all. I'm not worried about his value. I think if Neighbors was, halfway decent last year, he's probably just improved a little bit with his quarterback situation. So I'm perfectly fine. I'm not a huge, I don't draft the Giants a lot. I don't think Neighbors would necessarily be somebody that's even on my draft list. I'm weird like that. There's just certain players that I'm kind of like, eh. Yeah, Craig just said Russell throws a good deep ball. So
I like him. I thought if he got, my take was going into the free agency or the draft, if there's any type of a quarterback improvement, he's worth, you're getting him his value. I would reach for him. I would push him closer to 5 and 6.
Wow.
But maybe not with Russell Wilson. I think I'll just take him where. Yeah, I'll take him.
I thought you were talking about Russell Wilson. I'm like,
Malik Neighbors in single quarterback redraft.
So if you look at what the Giants did last year versus this year, they had Danny Jones, Locke, and DeVita, whatever. And now at least they've got Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. So they've improved, and they also have, of course, not only Malik, but they've got Wan'Dale Robinson.
Wan'Dale.
So
he gets open. He's
a West. We would have Wabbit.
So, and a decent tight end, running back, running game, Tracy, maybe, so they've made some improvement, but yeah, I probably wouldn't be rushing out to draft, Giants either.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a meh team for me. I kind of bypass them. I have certain people that I just don't, they're just not in my vision plan. That they're not on my vision board for fantasy.
Gotcha. So he's the F20, 25 fades because he's a Giant.
And sometimes I really regret being like that because I can sometimes have tunnel vision, and I have certain players that I just have never bonded with on a fantasy team. And then every year I'm like, why do I not draft that guy? But then if I do, it seems like if I do, the karma is that they won't play well for me. And I'm like, this is what I get. I'm sorry for judging you poorly, and I deserve this.
Giving
I bond with my fantasy football players. We do a lot of bonding. Same thing. Yeah.
Last year, I had Caleb Williams and Drake May as my quarterbacks, and I had Bryce Young too, and Scott Fish. And for the longest time, I had Caleb Williams as my QB1, and I tweeted out when I benched him. I didn't bench him, but I moved him to Superflex, and I moved Drake May to QB1. Yeah. And I tweeted about it. It was like, I don't know why I haven't made this move yet, but here it is.
Yeah. So I feel like sometimes when I finally get angry enough to make like a Twitter post about it, it's all of a sudden like the touchdown will happen, or it's like they hear me, and I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
I very rarely tweet in game. Something I avoid.
Oh, I probably tweet too much.
I watch and look at everybody doing it, but yeah.
Is Rick an open tweeter about like when things are not
during the game? Well? You tweet during the games, Rick?
I do, but I I have a couple superstitions. First of all, I try to avoid Thursday night football games.
They're the worst.
Yeah, they're bad games. They tend to be bad games. On occasion, if you're playing against somebody who has a player or two in the Thursday night game and they go off, then all of a sudden you've got those 2 or 3 more days of just beating yourself up over, what's this week going to look like? I also
but how do you avoid a Thursday game? Everybody plays in a Thursday game.
Yeah, I'll try to avoid if there's 2 players that are both relatively similar, I will play the Sunday player.
Interesting.
So
there's got to be some though that are plug-in plays, and it doesn't matter what day of the week.
And people also will say, and they'll say statistically, there's no more injuries on Thursday night than there are on Sunday games. But it always seems like there's major injuries on Thursday night. And it's because you're all watching that one game. And so you're really, really focused in on what happens in that game.
My advice for that superstition, Rick, is to look at the games over under, the Thursday game over under. If that shit says 49, you better be playing somebody in that game.
Yeah. Well,
so Thursday, but my bigger question is, if you have a superstition about Thursday, you must hate the overseas games, because I feel like
Sunday,
on
London games, and
the worst.
And field quality, again,
so bad.
And they're actually going to increase the number of games. I think they're even going to have an Australia game. I'm just
my God. They're going to need to go over there 2 weeks early just to catch up on the time changes.
Just play on Sundays. Travel. It's easy. Maybe Saturday if you want to, have a second shot at the TV ratings. But
those are the worst. I dread them, and I feel like no player ever plays well when they're outside of those. I'm with you. The Sunday games are good, but any other day of the week, even Monday are like, sometimes they can be like shootouts though, and then they're really good. But
all right, next up is Stephon Diggs to the Patriots for 3 years. Only 1 year guaranteed, but what do you think? Move. Do you like it? I like it.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I know there's people who are saying that they overpaid, which Stephon Diggs is a great wide receiver.
Yes.
And I still think he's got some fuel in his tank. it is interesting for the Patriots to overpay for anyone, because I feel like the Patriots are notorious for paying nothing for everyone. But I always feel like the Patriots are going after everybody's seconds. Like, oh wait, that guy's all washed up. Hang on, let me grab him. I think he'll be fine. I think Stephon will come out and we'll get at least one more decent year out of him, maybe two. But I try to stay away from the Patriots as it pertains to fantasy football altogether, because it is the most complicated organization. I learned from a very early fantasy football year, way back in the beginning. I had oh my gosh, what was his name? With a running back over there. I can't think of his name. No, way before Stevenson.
Curtis Martin?
No.
That's all too old.
Greg. Who was the running back that was in New England way long ago? The running back in New England way long ago.
When you were playing fantasy,
I mean, this was like 8-10 years ago. Anyway, he should have been decent, and it wasn't Booty. No.
Sony Michel.
Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis.
He should have been the go-to. He should have been running back one. But it was like when you'd play him, Bill Belichick was like, nope, not today. You're not playing.
Even Ridley, I think JC got it.
Then you wouldn't play him. And I'm like, I am done with New England running back. So from that point on, the only players that I would draft from New England were Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and Edelman. I would take Edelman. But then once Edelman retired, I was like, okay, Gronk and Brady. And then that was it. I'm staying away from the Patriots altogether.
And now with Diggs, you're going to obviously look at Diggs there, but outside of Diggs, what other wide receiver would you, Pops Douglas?
I would take him in a very late dart throw. Sure. Yeah. I mean, in late round drafts, if somebody like that is sitting there, I'm 100% taking him, and I'm totally okay with it, because he's probably going to be a bench player. And if I hit, guess what? Huge for me. But if I don't hit, I took him late.
But they drafted Polk last year. They drafted Baker last year. Neither really did anything. So still thinking Baker over Polk, in fact. So it'll be interesting to see what this offense looks like.
I don't even know who else they have over there. Who?
Pop Douglas, Keyshawn Booty, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper.
I mean, maybe Hunter Henry is a good target this year.
Yeah,
he's going to be cheap.
He had good games last year.
Tight ends.
You're
but
right.
He can catch the ball. He can score touchdowns, and New England does like their tight ends. So I would take Diggs if it made sense. I'm not going to overpay for Diggs in a fantasy league because he went to Patriots. Yep. But I'm not going to. I would be willing to take that risk, right? Big risk equals big reward. So he's going to be the go-to.
Does it put Drake May on your radar at all? Where do you have him? He's pretty. I like his rushing upside.
I'm okay with May. I think he showed a lot of improvement. I'm not overpaying for May, but if I need a third quarterback in a 2-quarterback league, fine. If he's still there, fairly late, and if I'm kind of punting, like if it's a 1-quarterback league and I'm not getting, I tend to wait on quarterback in 1-quarterback leagues. I'd be okay taking him as like a QB2 in a 1-quarterback. I don't think I want to be depending on Drake May. Like, I'm really punted if Drake May is my QB1. I might want one more year to see what happens. I think the Patriots went from the highest high to the lowest low, and I'm a little confused about what they're doing right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the draft once we know what they do with that number 4 pick. Whether they trade back, they use it, they take it, linemen.
I think they're going to do what everybody is not predicting, because that's the Patriot way.
I
the
want
most
them
confusing thing they can come up with.
I either want them to trade back or take the best lineman that is there that fits for them. Is it Will Campbell? Is that the guy? I think that's his name.
The thing about the draft, I like the guys that we play fantasy football with. I don't play a lot of IDP. So I always get bored when they're picking all the linemen and stuff. I'm like, I want guys that I'm going to see.
I know that Rick, they're trying to get me in to do an IDP draft. I think I'm going to give it a try. So just because I like Iggy, and
yeah, he's all about the IDP.
And I'll see if I'm any good at that. See if I have something there.
So speaking of the rookie draft, just as a little fun side note, Craig, my husband, is actually going to be attending the rookie draft this year at Lambeau.
Oh, exciting.
Nice.
Yeah. So he's a big Green Bay guy. We actually have, each of us have shares in Green Bay, but it came up this year that they're doing the rookie draft in Green Bay. And so a group of our fantasy football friends who we do live drafts with every year, it's quite a group. They had asked, hey, does anybody want to get together and go do the rookie draft? And it happens to be Craig's birthday weekend. So he's like, hey, you want to go to the rookie draft? And I would have loved to go, but with Bella just having the baby, I was like, I don't know if we both should go. Like, you go, it's your birthday. So there's a group of guys that are going. I was like, you go have a good time. So I am completely jealous, but I get to go do a lot of Debbie Gibson fun. So I'm going to let him have this one.
Nice.
Angie,
nice.
I'm not going with him. I know, I'm really sad I'm not, but it is what it is. Plus, I hate flying, and he's flying to Green Bay. So I was like, it's okay. I'll miss it.
All right. So I want to ask you some general draft strategy questions.
Sure. Yeah.
In your process, do you take, obviously you took a little bit of time off because you just became a grandmother, or Gigi, when you say Gigi.
Gigi.
Yeah. And so is that, do you normally, like, if it was like last season, did you take any time off between the end of the season and when you started preparing again?
I do. I have to have some time away.
Right.
I do redraft and dynasty. Dynasty is not my favorite, for the record. I much prefer redraft, because in dynasty you do have to be engaged all the time. But by the end of the fantasy football season, I am pretty much like, I think my hair starts falling out from stress. I take it very seriously. Like, this is, it's not just a game to me. Like, it's a job. It's a competition. It is something I want to go out and give 100% all the time. So I have to reset. I absolutely. And I don't take a time out from like the people of fantasy football. I just take a time out from thinking about fantasy football.
The deep dive and the looking at all that. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So do you analyze team situations to determine which players will benefit the most, like in that team? I
do, on a very surface level. So I call myself a common sense fantasy football player. I don't get over involved in the research aspect. I look at the current news. I look at a very shallow, overview of what's going on a team. Okay. So like the Patriots that we were just talking about, who do the Patriots have? You are dealing with Drake May, who's a young quarterback and remains to be seen to really prove himself. But then you have a veteran wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, going over there. I'm looking at that going, okay, well, Stephon Diggs is going to catch balls. So I'm not scared to draft Stephon Diggs because of his situation, even though the Patriots are not the best team right now. Versus, I do get a little more scared. I know there's wide receivers out there that are quarterback proof, but I am a little more hesitant to pick a wide receiver who I feel like, maybe Malik Neighbors, for instance, last year on the Giants, where he didn't have the strongest quarterback. And it's like, what's going to happen to this guy? So yes, in that sense, I do look at the teams also during the season. I am the queen of picking the scrappiest, crappiest people you can imagine, that everybody's like, why would you draft him? Well, I'm over here like, because everybody's injured. They have to throw the ball to somebody. So Braxton Berrios is a good example of that a few years back. And God, where was he even playing? Because he wasn't with the Dolphins. Who was he with before the Dolphins? Jets. The Jets. And I'm over here like he is just waving at me on waivers like, hello, it's me. And I was like, you know what? This is the most non-sexy move I'm going to make all season, but I'm going to pick him up. And guess what? He was killing it for a couple of weeks. And I'm like, totally unconventional move, but that's what wins you weeks. So yes, in that should answer your question. I do look at it, but I don't get too deep.
So
a long-winded answer.
Why don't you tell us about your general draft approach, like your
draft strategy,
like your roster construction. What are you usually looking for, or do you do balance? Do you do zero RB, or do you just kind of however the draft falls, and you're just taking the best player approach?
Yeah. So you want me to give away my secrets?
No. No,
I'm just kidding.
Nobody's listening. You're safe.
I was just bragging on all my trophies. I can't tell you that. No,
not for this year. Just in general. Don't give
general.
you this year. Don't talk about what you're scheming up right now for this year.
It's really not that fancy. I will never be a zero RB. I cannot do it. I've tried and I just cannot do it. Look at Angie's giving me the ear. You just walk away, Angie.
I'm trying, Angie.
So I'm a little more of a hero RB. I just feel like there's less RBs. Now, the argument is going to be that teams are using more committee backfield situations, and that is true. And I am having to shift a little bit. I've always been draft RBs first, unless it's a heavy quarterback. Like if people are going quarterbacks, then I need to pivot and go quarterback. But I'm a value drafter. I rarely am a reacher. I try to be balanced, but as you know, every draft is different. So I have to adapt to whatever my league mates are doing. I like drafting with people I know more because I usually kind of know which way the draft is going to go. It can be like Scott Fish is a scary place because you just don't know what these people, if you don't know these people, you've never drafted with them, it can go south fast. Like my Scott Fish draft this past year was one of the hardest drafts I've ever drafted in. Because it was just not what I predicted at all. And I felt like it was so different than the drafts around me. So I was having to do a lot of like panic, like, what am I going to do?
On the fly decisions.
Pivoting in ways I didn't want to pivot. So I do try to stick with value. Sometimes I'll print out some of the, I can't tell you who it is because I'm bad with knowing where I'm getting them. Craig's got a couple of like apps that you can go into and they'll give you like their rankings as it pertains to, a redraft or a dynasty. And sometimes I'll print those out. Actually, I followed that pretty closely for my Queen's Classic draft. And I was, at least it kept me within the realm of value. And so then I would kind of take blocks and be like, okay, these are the guys I'm looking at. So if one of those are there, I'm going to try not to get too wrapped up like in an actual player. And I'm going to try to take that value. And if value falls, I'm 100% gonna grab that up. So if everybody else is getting a little crazy, I'm over here like, why am I still looking at this person on the board? I'm going to take them. So I try to be logical and common sense. I try not to get too crazy. And I just, I try to stay up on values of players and then go off of that.
Okay. How much do you value elite quarterbacks and elite tight ends?
This changes all the time. Especially I feel like tight ends, especially because tight end, I love the tight end position.
Tight
And
end
I
is a
hate it.
crapshoot. It
It really is. I mean, a few years ago, you really only had maybe like two or three. And so at that point, if you didn't get one of those three, I just was punting tight end completely. And whoever I got towards the end of the draft was fine, because you're really only competing with three other teams who got these elite tight ends. And is that going to make or break your team? Like the points differential didn't really make sense. Now I feel like there's quite a few tight ends in the mix. So the tight ends are spreading out a little more. So it's a little more important to end up with one of those elite tight ends. Quarterbacks, I do value them, but if I have a draft position that I don't get lucky enough to get one of them, then I'm punting and I'm going to take the value that falls and take a mediocre quarterback or hope for a Baker Mayfield where I just get really lucky and I draft him late and he has one hell of a year. So that can happen. Like, you got to take into consideration how many more points is this guy going to score over this guy? Is it worth me taking this just to fill that position, or does it make more sense to take this player that's probably going to score more points and just, punt that other position a little
yeah,
further?
you don't want to force a position, like you said. It's a position.
I don't want to reach.
It's a position that you can patch up there and through waivers too.
Right.
Like there's
absolutely.
always a couple of tight ends that present themselves because there's an injury and now they're getting more targets and so
and bye week, you had mentioned bye week earlier. I don't pay attention to bye week. I will.
I don't either, but in Scott Fish, because of the playoffs, I do.
It's too much for me to think about, to be honest with you. And so now I will tell you, it's been tough the last couple of years because there are a couple of weeks. It was like 14 and 11 or something. I felt like every player was on a bye in those weeks and I had them all. So there were a couple rough weeks, but I actually would rather have all of my players out on one bye week and take the loss in that 1 week and then have everybody back in my roster and not have to worry about it. Then spread it all out and have to be plugging in. I'm like, you know what? If most of them are out in this 1 week, I'm probably not going to win in that week, but then I'm moving on.
Awesome. Rick, you got any questions? Any
well,
draft
it's more of a comment. Yeah. Obviously it depends on the scoring because, and there was a while for the last couple of years where people were so laser focused on running quarterbacks. And so, the Konami code type quarterbacks. But I think that again, if you're smart before you go into a league, you study the scoring rule and the rules, and you might find out that, the passing quarterback in a bigger, scoring TD league is going to be more important than someone who's racking up yards on the ground. So, and tight end too. I'm almost to the point where I say that I'd rather have the kickers in the lineup and, have, tight end jammed into wide receiver, because you're right. If you don't get those first three or so, 5 through 20, 5 through 15, there's probably not much difference between any of them. And you could almost go to the, 5 through 20. You might as well, focus in on wide receivers or getting a running back that's going to get you scoring more consistently, and maybe get lucky with Hunter Henry having a good week.
Or Isaiah Likely coming out of left field.
Or Isaiah Likely, especially if Andrews gets hurt, all of a sudden you've got that top three tight end. So you kind of
or Noah Gray, I think, had more touchdowns than Travis Kelce last year. I mean, it was like crazy.
Yeah, Kelce really waited till the playoffs before he decided, I'm going to play.
He was a bust. All right. So question for both of you, just on the topic of Travis Kelce. Would you draft him this year, or are you staying away from Travis Kelce? You think that ship has sailed?
Nope. I stopped drafting him last year, going into last year. He's fallen even further. It's tempting. Maybe I can't say I would ever completely fade him, but I don't playing on target and Mahomes, so I wouldn't even be doing a stat. Like, I don't know. He's one of my. I'm probably not going to have him. Just like
Do
you
not
feel
draft.
about, just like you
Yeah.
feel about Neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
What
a
about
Mahomes stack that had so much potential, and I scored the most points in the league, and then I lost in the finals and didn't win the amount that I was supposed to win with that team, and it was because they underachieved. It wasn't
Yeah.
even the rest of my team was really good. I put together a really good Mahomes stack, and it didn't win. So
Yeah.
I think I'm burnt
So
by that a little.
they get the X, no more.
And I
about
mostly
Rick?
play Dynasty, so I'm not going to be drafting him anyway. I'm not going to be drafting any
Yeah.
veterans.
Now, are you trying to offload him as fast as you can in Dynasty?
I already did.
Okay.
Good job, Rick.
I was looking to refresh a team, and he wasn't going to make my team a winner.
Flipped him.
And so I'd rather lose a player 1 year early than all of a sudden get stuck with them, and then trying to give up, or worse, throwing him in with another trade just to make the trade I want to happen. So.
Yeah, and the problem for me is, like, I would say, hey, if Travis Kelce's hanging around at a point that I'm like, I mean, I might as well take him now. The problem with that is once he's on my roster, he's juicy, right? Like, you want to plug him into your roster.
To play him, yeah.
So then what do you do with him? So sometimes it's just best to leave him alone, let somebody else deal with that headache, and not have to make that week-to-week decision because you want to play Travis Kelce. But
you are so right. All of a sudden he's there, or your fifth wide receiver, your sixth wide receiver.
Right.
Go with Kelce. Who's got at least the
upside.
But
here's what happens though. What happens if you pick Kelce? Like, I feel like if I pick Kelce, even though he's a value, like another 2 or 3 rounds, there'll be somebody there, a tight end there, and I'll be like, oh man, why I should have just taken it. And then you end up taking him too, and it's kind of not like you said, because now you're like, am I really going to bench Kelce? Like,
yeah,
so
because his ceiling
so
is so
it's kind of like it makes you force a pick because or you pass on the pick and you're like, I probably I should have went with that. Like Rick said, that fifth or that sixth wide receiver you passed up on looking nice when you see the
and here's the alternative, or at least the counter to that, is in best ball or in like a
great best ball guy. Great best ball guy.
Or playoff, because that he's going to start ramping it up for the playoffs. And so then you go after him big time. Yeah.
I mean, Kelce at this point, if I'm drafting a best ball team, 100%, I'd love to have Kelce on my roster because his ceiling is so high. Oh, yeah. You want the ceiling guys all day long. I mean, I actually just did draft in a best ball league. And of course, I'm like, we're drafting now. I didn't, and rookies were involved, but I didn't take a single rookie because I don't know anything about any of them. You don't know where landing spots are going to be. I just went with all the veterans, and I'm like, it is what it is. But I didn't get Kelce. Actually, he went in kind of a crazy spot. I want to say he went I think he was first tight end off the board. No, second. Oh. Brock Bowers went first. Kelce went second, and I was like,
okay. That's a reach for Kelce,
okay.
Baby.
I mean, it's great best ball guy, but okay.
Yeah, even in best ball, that's a reach.
It'll be an interesting season.
It's someone drafting for name.
So, Gina, thank you for coming on and bailing us out. We greatly appreciate it. This was good, too. I had fun talking fantasy football with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad I could help you out. And I did want to come on. I know we had talked about it before, and then crazy things blew up in my world. So this was perfect. I was available, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get on with you two crazy fantasy guys.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you one question. My daughter is starting softball this year. She did 2 years of coach pitch. We moved there. So I live in Malden,
Yep.
And there's like 1 or 2 teams, so there's no league. So we put her in Medford, and they like take it serious. Like we couldn't even watch the player assessment. It was pretty cool.
Ooh.
I was like,
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I was like,
Yeah.
and me and my wife went for a drink. It was great.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then, but she's like the girls, like it's the age 10 to 12 group, and the girls pitch, and like
Yep.
it's like with the rules and stuff. So you have any words of inspiration, advice for her, because she's definitely still listening to the show right now.
Yeah. Belle.
You can bring Bella
Oh,
on for that.
Bella
Absolutely.
in here. So softball is a fantastic sport. It is growing by leaps and bounds, and I think we're gonna see it surpass it's already surpassed baseball in the college world in terms of revenue that it's bringing in and viewership. It's a tough sport, but it's very rewarding. I like the fact that in softball, you see all different shapes and sizes. So other sports, you either have to be really, really tall, or, there's certain, it seems like, genetic attributes that you need to fit into. Whereas in softball, you can be anybody and you can be great. The little ones are usually fast, the bigger ones are usually strong, and everything in between. So everyone has a place in softball, and they'll find it. But just get a lot of training behind the scenes, lots of practice. I mean, get out and have her hit off of a tee over and over and over and over again. In this area, everybody has, like, Bella had a hitting coach. When you get up into that level, you'll start getting like coaches but have her get with like find somebody in a high school. These girls love, Bella actually will work with the younger kids, and she's done it for years. Find a player that can be a mentor to her, and have her go and watch the games, bring her to high school games, bring her to local travel, if there's tournaments in the area, have her watch those games and how it all works, because it clicks. And then try to find a mentor who is like a high school kid, because I could see coaches sometimes can't speak on the level that the kids understand it. And I could see Bella had a mentor. She had a high school girl when she was younger, and she just loved her, and she could speak on her level. And so sometimes that really helps them to understand the game a little better, because like we over talk things and they bring it down to their level. So definitely, I mean, she's going to love it. Tell her it's hard. Make her try the different positions until she really finds one that she loves. Don't ever let anybody tell her she's, nothing but great. Like she'll be great. And if somebody doesn't believe in her, move along. Like move to another place where they support her. But yeah, she's gonna love it.
I think they have. So I know who the coach is, and he's actually really good. He's vocal. He repeats things over and over and over again, and he's
fundamentals.
Like, he enjoys what he does.
Fundamentals are the absolute base to, like, Bella was very blessed to have fundamentally sound coaches that taught her how to do everything properly. And that's what actually built her as a great player. So get on YouTube and literally find, Bella's done all this. You find drills and you can work with her, and you find these drills and do it over and over again. But repetition is the best thing. But as long as you're repeating the movements properly, because you don't want to cause bad habits.
I agree. I played baseball.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Good luck to her.
Awesome. That was good. Great advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Rick. Got anything to add?
No, I mean, I love watching. You mentioned women's softball, and I just saw some girl from Tennessee, University of Tennessee.
Yes. The
Oh my
70,
gosh.
was it 78-mile-an-hour fastball?
Oh my gosh. And
You know
rising
that's
too.
like 108 miles an hour in
That's
like a
in a
baseball.
hard, fast pitch. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like amazing how good she is. And so,
Yeah,
you know,
that's insanity.
and that's what's also cool about, there's a lot more focus on women's sports, whether it's women's basketball, women's college basketball. And, again, I think, trying to encourage more and more women to play sports. And in fact, one of the charities that's in um, uh, uh, the, what is it, bots, Battle of the Sexes.
Yeah.
One of the three charities was Play Like a Girl. So
Oh yeah.
great opportunity for to encourage more women to get into sports, as well as STEM and other science and technology stuff. It's all good. So, but yeah, I saw that. I saw that Tennessee pitcher. I go, whoa! I couldn't hit that. No way.
Yeah, and Bello is a catcher, so like it's one thing to get up there and have to hit that, but imagine having to catch that. Like,
oh yeah,
whoa!
Catching is tough for sure.
Woo. Yeah, it takes. We always say that the catchers are a special breed. They're a little crazy, but they're leaders. They have leader mentalities, and they really are. They're the only player that can see the entire field.
Yeah, they're the general. Yep.
Yep. They're a special breed for sure. But I love that all women of all backgrounds and all shapes and sizes there's a spot for them in softball. So I love that.
Nice. All right. So tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter. I'm not like the most active person on Twitter. I do more like looking through things than necessarily posting, but I am NobleG_FF on the X. So you can find me on there. So I try to engage with people, but I don't always do my own posting. So, and I have I'm like active and then I'm like gone for a little while. Then I get on there and I'm active again, but I'm there.
I'm gonna miss the softball posts of
I know. I am
Bella
too.
smashing the ball. Yeah.
I know. And just real quick, I know we're way over time here, but
Okay.
Bella had just come back from the ACL. She tore her ACL going into senior year. And so she had gotten cleared in May, which if you do the math of when she got pregnant, it would have been like end of May, early June. So I was like, do you realize that you never played not pregnant? She played pregnant through her. It was the whole time she was cleared. So I wanted to see her get back on that field just one more time. So I did definitely cry as we drove away from school. I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Mom, I'm good. Like, I'm good." And she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm okay." It was a moment, but she's playing we call it old lady slow pitch softball. So she did join a local league. So maybe I'll post some videos of her old lady league. From fast pitch to slow pitch.
All right, Rick, why don't you tell us who our guest is next week?
Okay. Well, next Thursday at this same time, we're going to have, oh man, drawing a blank. I'm sorry. I was so impressed with Dan Klaskins.
Yep.
Dan Klaskins, who's on the Fantastics and also SiriusXM. He's been on SiriusXM on the weekends for pretty much, for forever, at least for the entire time I've been playing fantasy football, and helped me become really interested in fantasy football. So I'm excited to get a chance to meet and talk with him. Then, of course, we've got other shows that are going to be coming on during the week. We have the Sunday show, the TSA Hoop Show with JR, one of the best shows on basketball. So please watch that one. On Tuesdays, I come back. Oh, I'm sorry. First of all, Monday nights, we do the mock draft, and that's with Joe and JC. Tuesdays, the Give Back Show, where I talk to people about charity leagues and charity events. On Wednesday, Carla's great interview show, The Game Changers. And then on Thursday, we're back. Friday, there's a new show with Joe and JC talking about best ball drafts. And
Draft is after dark.
yes, drafters
Ooh.
after that. And translating that for those folks who can't understand Boston, drafting after dark.
See, but I can say it, and I'm from
Roasted
Massachusetts.
by Rick.
Okay, so
Good job, good job,
so-
guys.
thank you very much for joining us, everyone, and hope you'll stay with the TSA family, and hopefully you'll be back with us next Thursday night. And thanks, Gina, for jumping in and saving us. And JC, why don't you go ahead and take us on out?